Hello everybody, I hope you are having a blessed week. Now, there are moments in our lives when we realize, often quite painfully, that we are not in control. It may be, for example, in the middle of a flight, when the plane begins to tremble a bit too much and you hear the ding for the seatbelt sign to be fastened, and announcement follows that the plane is going to go through a period of turbulence. And the atmosphere feels tensed. And for me, I will grip the armrest, wondering how long this will last. Or maybe we hear bad news from the doctor that you or your loved one will have to undergo a major surgery. Or in some cases, thankfully not in Singapore, when a country is facing high tensions and is at risk of escalating into war. And if war breaks out, what used to be normal, going to school, going to work, markets and so forth, everything that is normal is changed and gone. And you can imagine how fear will grip a population. Now, thankfully, we're not in that situation now. But things can happen in life that can throw us off personally or in our families. And then we realize that we are not in control at all. And no matter what personality you say you are, all of us like to be in control of our life. As a Christian and as a pastor, I believe and I trust that God is sovereign, that God is in control of everything, and He can do the impossible. But when things get out of hand, when things feel like they're out of my control, I must admit I feel uncomfortable. And maybe you do too, because we want life always to make sense, things to be logical, and we expect circumstances to turn out as we plan or anticipate. And but faith means trusting God even when life throws us a curveball. But more than trust, can we actually surrender to God in those moments? And here's when Psalm chapter 3 comes in. The superscription on the psalm says it was written during the time when King David fled for his life, not from a foreign enemy, but from his own son Absalom, who wanted to usurp the throne. David's closest advisor, named Ahithophel, had betrayed him by joining the rebellion of Absalom. So the ground beneath King David gave way. And let me read the psalm now to you. Verse 1, O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God, Selah. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and He answered me from His holy hill, Selah, which means pause. Verse 5, I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Verse 8, salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be on your people, Selah. David writes this psalm not from his palace, but in the wilderness. He loved his son Absalom, still loved, but Absalom was bitter and he resented David. So he staged a violent coup, and many of the people in the country turned against David for Absalom. And now the city is no longer safe. David cries out to God, O Lord, how many are my foes? He cannot begin to number his enemies. Things are out of hand. Now, you and I, we don't have political or military enemies like David. But we too cannot control the existence of enemies. And David was hurt by the betrayal of his most trusted advisor, Ahithophel. He thought of sending another advisor to Jerusalem to thwart the advice of Ahithophel. But David was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. And people were saying about David, there is no salvation for him now in God. No hope at this time for David. And that is not a nice position to be in. And maybe there are voices around you that say, you are done for. You'll never recover from this. Where is your God now? So let's see what David did to counter these feelings of loss of control plus all this negativity. Verse 3 is the pivot of the psalm. It says, but you, O Lord, are the shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. Notice he says, God is the shield about me. He didn't say, God, you are a shield in front of me. And verse 6 says, thousands of his enemies are all around him. They have encircled him. So it was important that God is a shield about him. Now, I'm sure you've seen movies where two men get caught in a street fight. Now, and the enemies that come upon them is a big gang. Let's say there are 15 gangsters. How do the two men defend themselves? Well, they stand, according to the movies, and I believe this is the right tactic, they stand back to back. They stand back to back against each other as they fight, protecting each other's back until the end. And David here was feeling anxious and exposed to danger as his enemies had surrounded him. But then he remembers, but you, O Lord, are a shield about me. God is all around him. God has, just surrounded him, just holding him. So, and previously, David was feeling ashamed because he was ousted. Now, it's one thing to be ousted by a foreign enemy. But to be ousted by your own son, that is embarrassing, dishonorable, shameful. And David was weeping. His head was bowed down. And the people that supported him, his loyal supporters, they are also weeping because their leader is weeping and bowed down. And David said, but you, O Lord, you are the glory. You are my glory and the lifter of my head. I can lift my head up high. The people had said there is no salvation for David, that God is done with him. David could have believed them. But David said in verse 4, I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. He was so sure about God's faithfulness, and so he moved from trust to surrender. And then he has this beautiful image. He gives us this beautiful image in verse 5. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. Now, why is that beautiful? Because when do you struggle to fall asleep? What gives rise to insomnia? I think there are three main causes. One is hunger. Hunger makes us restless. Of course, we have to differentiate between greed and hunger. But if it's true hunger, your body is crying out for food, and therefore it is not able to rest. Second thing that keeps us awake is the cold. Coldness makes our body tense, not relaxed. Of course, heat also. So temperature can affect our sleep. Now, third and most powerful reason for sleeplessness is fear. Because fear agitates our soul. It fills our minds with the worst case scenarios and questions. And often these questions are unnecessary. The what if this, what if that, and all the negative thoughts come in. But David says something remarkable. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. And he says this while he's on the run for his life, while he's surrounded by his enemies, while everything seems to be giving way, taken away from him. And he's able to lay down and sleep because the Lord sustains him. He's not sustained by the feeling of control. He's not sustained by his loyal fan base. He's not sustained by his throne, the glory of his palace, but he's sustained by the Lord. And so David is not afraid, although thousands surround him. And he writes of the Lord granting him just vengeance. Verses 7 and 8, "Arise, Lord, deliver me, my God. Strike all my enemies on the jaw. Pop. Break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people." We find this strange, asking God to give our enemies a sock on the jaw and to knock the teeth out of the wicked. But this is apparently very common form of speech in Middle East, and it's in line with their culture. And David's prayer is not coming from bitterness or hatred, but from desperation for justice. And he trusts that God sees and that God will vindicate his children. God will do what needs to be done. Both deliverance and blessing are from him. So let me recap a bit. The psalm is for the times we feel we have lost control of our lives, which will come anytime. There is nothing we can do to change the circumstances. And when it feels like there's trouble or enemies all around us, remember Psalm chapter 3. Remember that the Lord is a shield about you. Even though you have thousands or all kinds of accusations against you, God's got your back, and you can rest, sleep even though circumstances are working against you. Let's move from just trusting God. What we say is not as important than actually surrendering to him. But don't take matters into your own hands. David didn't do anything. God vindicated him. Let God be God. And that is the way for peace and the blessing of God on his people. The Lord bless you.